The BraveSpace podcast is devoted to the meeting of body and spirit. In a culture of shared respect and love for the life force that moves through us, we move, feel, dance, breathe, touch, and sing in somatic ecstatic prayer. BraveSpace is the place of belonging, safe enough to take the risk of being vulnerable. Hello, welcome to the BraveSpace podcast. My name is Matthew Nelson, and today I'd like to introduce you to the podcast by speaking about Soma and spirit. Soma is referring to the body as an experience, the body as a whole, the body as lived. The field of somatics is a field of movement and awareness. You have an experience of your body that only you can have, just as I have an experience of my body that only I can have. And we can have conversations about that. That's the focus of this podcast. And particularly recognizing that I can have one experience and you can have another. And that's how this life force works in us. So I like to think of it as a science from the inside. Somatics is a science where we observe and interact with our observations of ourselves from within. It doesn't mean it's objective observation. It's different than science that is used to, say, make airplanes, right? All the science that goes into making an airplane is studying the world outside ourselves so that one airplane will fly just like another. We need that dependability, working with things outside ourselves, working with the world beyond our bodies. But within our bodies, the only way we can get reliable information about what it is to be us is to notice and observe what it is to be us. And then we can draw conclusions about that for us. Can't draw them for you. I can draw them for me. You can draw them for you. And so we wouldn't want to throw that information out, or we'd miss so much of the possibility of being alive. And to a large degree, I would say our culture's done this. We've come to value the objective so strongly that many people are missing the experience, maybe you resonate with this, missing the experience of knowing who they are and how to be with themselves, knowing what's being given to them that can't be measured through their beingness. I work with my body as a channel of spirit, that there's this life force that comes through me that I'm not in charge of. I can't control it. But I can dance with it, I can move with it, I can explore with it. I can do experiments, right? This science on the inside to find out what is this magic that is being alive, that is so incredible and so painful and so mysterious. All at once, right? It's all at once. There's this idea that we need to come into our bodies, right? Be more embodied. That's coming up now as the somatic field is growing. It's beautiful to have this recognition. And then one of the first pieces of it is understanding we're already here. There is no me that is not in relationship to this body so long as I'm on this planet. This can point to the piece of, well, what about when I'm not on this planet? That's speaking to spirit, in my view. So spirit is the frame larger than a lifetime. Spirit includes the care and the meaning that comes to me when I think about my son's life after I'm gone, or my parents and grandparents and great-grandparents' lives before I got here. All the generations that have been and are yet to come. We have all these narratives and stories and ideas about what's bigger than us. And those are our spiritual stories and perceptions. What better place to tune into the frame of what's larger than my sense of self than this kind of magic of having an experience of the body, because that's coming from somewhere. We could theorize all day about where it's coming from, but instead of theorizing, we can go right into the feeling, right into the experience, and be directly in contact on some level with Source. And so this is where somatics and spirit meet for me, and that's what this podcast will be exploring with guests and with my own work around this. I believe we need spaces we can take the risk of being ourselves with others. I believe that's one of the things that's most potently able to connect us with Source, and also that brings this sense of meaning in our lives. And we do it together. We create our authenticity. We discover our authenticity in the frame of each other and in the frame of finding out, what's this body got to say? It's amazing. It's very hard to lie with the body. There's lots of objective studies, scientific studies that have looked at, shadow gestures, little tics, things we do. I mean, this is why there are people so good at telling when someone tells a lie. They're looking at the body language. Body language doesn't lie. So when we come into our bodies together, and particularly when we're in spaces with each other, whether we're just in storytelling spaces or movement spaces, then we can discover the layers of who we are. And we're always negotiating that. There's this sense like our authenticity is a set thing, but it's actually a constant discovery, because our mind, the sense we have of who we are, can't always see that larger frame until it arrives. Oh, I did this? Wow, I didn't know I'd do that. I was trying to do this one thing. I was trying to maintain eye contact with you, but I was distracted by that person. We're not in control. We're dancing with this lived experience. Christian Pankhurst, a man I've studied with, his work is called Heart IQ, and I really like his work, and hopefully I'll have him on the podcast for you sometime. He speaks to the nature of joy in communal containers, in group gatherings, and he holds these beautiful circles. He talks about that we are engaging with joy. We're sort of in the pursuit of joy. We're following this mystery of joy. And in doing so, all the grunge comes up, all the dirt, all the things that get in the way of our joy. So our traumas, right? Our sadness, our anger, all these things that feel, less than joy, they'll show up in the path of pursuing joy. And this is different than a view like, I need to pull all those things up, dredge them up to find joy. In fact, it's the pursuit of the joy that will bring the things up. And that way we don't need to have a sense like we ever have to be perfect or get it all right. It's like, well, the thing that needs to come up will come up when it comes up. Then there can be joy within holding the sadness, within holding the shame. There's the joy of feeling all these things. And that's required on some level if we're going to come into the authenticity of this body, because it's not all, fun all the time. It's not all pretty all the time. There's pain. There's the things that are harder to experience and hold. And I think that's one of the things that scares us out of our bodies, is that the presence in these bodies takes some skill. It takes some practice. It's uncomfortable. It's real. It's also beautiful. It's also pleasurable. In order to feel the pleasure of it, though, we can't be selective. In order to feel the pleasure, we also have to be willing to feel the pain. So there's this attunement. And if we can hold joy as the container, not like I have to always feel joy. It's joy is available. I'm going to stick around and find out where it is. Yeah? I bet you're starting to get a sense of why I call this work BraveSpace. As we dive into ourselves and we come into community with our authenticity, it takes bravery to be willing to be that vulnerable, to come into community with this sense that we're revealing ourselves in order to connect with spirit. In connecting with a group of people that way, through the authenticity of our bodies moving together, of speaking from our bodies, of being engaged with this kind of perception, then there's a layer of magic that comes about. There's this ability to connect with source, right? How do we do it? I like to look at what's happened with yoga in our culture. 30 years ago, yoga wasn't really in our culture hardly. And now it's in every strip mall. And people go in and they get on their mat and they sweat and they feel, they engage with their bodies. It doesn't matter what kind of yoga, some I would say are doing this more than others, but ultimately we're all being faced with our bodies in yoga classes in our culture now. And that wasn't happening just a little bit ago. The next layer, which I find at ecstatic dances, I find it in contact improvisation, I find it in the spaces that I'm playing in. There's a next layer of improvisation where we move from the known into the unknown. We step off the mat. We're able to listen in and move from that listening to ourselves and in the communal and with each other, perceiving what's happening in a space. I learned this as a modern dancer. So I started dancing years ago, many years ago, I can't count anymore, and ended up becoming a professional dancer from the place of having never done it before. And then went to grad school, taught in higher education, and then I've been in the private realm for 10 years now, bringing groups into this movement. And I've been aware that dance is scary to most people. I've stopped using the word dance. We're 10 minutes into this podcast and I'm using the word dance now, but I didn't for 10 minutes because it intimidates us because we think it's about performing. In our culture, dance is about performing, and performance it's a difficult place. It's I'm supposed to be the special one. It doesn't feel genuine. It becomes competitive. That's not really the essence of dance. The essence of dance is this spiritual play, as I see it, into the joy and authenticity of being in a body. And it's our birthright. And we can meet each other from there. In our culture, we don't tend to sing together. We don't tend to dance together. But this isn't universal. Most cultures have access to these things outside of this realm of performance, and it's coming back. So I mentioned ecstatic dance. For those of you who don't know, it's kind of like a nightclub, usually more daytime hours or early evening hours with no alcohol, no substances. And it's a sense of communal prayer that forms. It's this prayer directly through the body. It's not a worship of the external. It's actually this coming into tune with everything I've been talking about here. And the music's often very bassy. Ecstatic dance revolves in some level around having really good sound systems with music that takes us somewhere and dives us through a journey of movement. And it doesn't matter how good you look. It's not what it's about. It's not about trying to be anything. It's about connecting with that truth of the body. Ecstatic dance doesn't mean it always feels good either. What if I'm not ecstatic? It's well, of course. In fact, it takes a while. It's practice. We got to come into feeling all these things that may be more difficult to feel. And the reward is often, and not always, an ecstatic experience, a sense of being beside ourselves. And we're both beside ourselves and within our body. And so it's an expansion of this field of awareness, and it's very connected with other people. And I don't know what's going to happen next. There's no set steps. You have some reference point, but it's always moving into the unknown. And that, to me, this moving into the unknown is where we're headed as a culture, right? Yoga has come in and we've been doing these set forms, And now ecstatic dance, there's no set movement. It's not like doing a square dance or doing tango. I mean, tango is pretty improvisational in many ways too. But there's nothing set. We're just exploring into the open palette of the unknown based on what we know, carrying it forward. And man, that's just beautiful to me. Improvisation really is life. That's why it's so exciting to me, is it gives us this ability to deal with problems we haven't seen before. Like on this planet, we're dealing with problems we've never seen before. We've got global community connected here. You know, you could be around the world and listening to me. We're connected in all these ways, and we're at a critical juncture where we could blow each other up. We're overrunning the planet on some level. There's resource issues. There's so much going on, problems we don't yet know how to solve. It's going to take the skill of improvisation together to do it. And so these somatic practices, this ability to, yes, dance, and you don't have to believe you're dancing, but to dance with spirit is to be able to improvise and come up with, to allow in the solutions that might come through us to the problems we don't know how to think our way out of the way we've been thinking, right? Einstein so famously spoke about we can't solve the problems that we've created from one form of consciousness with that form of consciousness. Here's the next form. It's to be connected in our bodies. So BraveSpace. BraveSpace is the work that's coming through me after all these years of dance and holding different groups and working with my body and others. And it's about taking this risk of coming into our authenticity, using movement and awareness and connection. And I'll be taking you through in this podcast different aspects of who I see using the same, because the BraveSpace isn't just mine, it's just my term for what I'm seeing. And it's all around us. It's what we're doing. And I want to call it out. I want to speak to the principles of what we're doing that I think is working to carry us forward into greater connection through our bodies with each other, solving the problems that matter and bring meaning to our lives. I have 10 principles. And in the next episode, I'll take you through those principles. That'll be the focus in this next episode. And then from there, we'll start with guests, and those principles will work their way forward. Some episodes I'll speak to them more directly than others, but you'll recognize them. There is a website. That website is BraveSpaceSomatics.com. Please go there and sign up for the email list, and I'll keep you enlightened as to what's coming next, what's in the pipeline. And there's also workshops, and there'll be retreats and things like that I'll be offering. So it's a joy to have you here. Thank you for listening. Thanks for giving my passion meaning here by connecting it with you. I hope you'll be back soon. Till then.